Fantagraphics has come out with a lot of awesome books lately, and I have 3 of them to catch up with you on. So let me show these off to you, flip the camera around, stay tuned, and watch this video until the end. And we're back. My name is Taylor, this is Taylor Talks Comics. Please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and comment down below with any and all of your thoughts about Fantagraphics, about these books, about comics in general. I reply to all comments and love talking to you guys about comics. Yeah, so these are 3 of the recent releases from Fantagraphics. I also have the latest Carl Barks Library edition. Donald Duck Finds Pirate Gold, which is the first volume of the series. I'm going to do a separate video for that one. That'll be out in a few days. But these are the 3 books that came out recently that I want to show off today. And they're 3 of pretty distinct styles and types. But I love everything Fantagraphics publishes, so I love talking about all of them. So let's start off with The Moon Prince by Kevin Fraser Mutch. Zoom in a little bit here. So this is a substantial, I think it's like a 400-page, how many pages? Yeah, 400-plus page, almost 450-page book, graphic novel called The Moon Prince. And you can see on the blurb back here by Ezra Clayton Daniels, it says, an exhilarating mix of Winsor McCay and Frank Herbert. The Moon Prince shines as a breathtaking, emotional, and truly epic feat of comics making. And I couldn't agree more. This is the first time I've read anything from Kevin Fraser Mutch, and I've wanted to read his, what was it? The Rough Pearl. I've been wanting to read that. I just haven't got around to it. So, but after reading this, I definitely want to seek it out even more, because I really love Kevin's storytelling and his art style. So the book design is really nice. It's a paperback, but it's got French flaps to it. And they're like really big French flaps that almost go to the fold in the cover there. And look at these end papers. Like, that is just amazing. I think the back end papers are, yeah, the back end papers are different as well. So that's just to show you the kind of wild story you're about to encounter with The Moon Prince. And it stars these 2 characters, which are styled by and influenced by his 2 children. And he writes that in the introduction here. Kevin does. Right here, you can even see the cover with the photo reference that he did with his children for the cover image. And Kevin uses a lot of photo reference as far as like taking photos of his kids in different poses and different costumes and outfits and scenarios to reference for his artwork. Not unlike like an Alex Ross back. You know, that's my first encounter of seeing an artist use photo reference that way. Alex Ross is famous for posing as friends and family members in different ways and different costumes to do for his artwork. But he writes an introduction about the inspiration for this. And it's because he was watching an old movie, the H.G. Wells adaptation of The First Men on the Moon. And then he was trying to introduce his children to classic literature of fantastic adventure stories as a kid set on Mars or Venus or in African or Indian jungles. And he was flipping through them with a nostalgic look at them, but then noticed that they didn't have the best representation of minorities. A lot of them have very classic literature, even like Tintin and thinking back, sometime even the Carl Barks Library has been set as such as far as like depicting stereotypical representation of minorities and things. So Kevin wanted to have that same kind of adventure story, but told with that kind of modern sensibility and modern respect, modern knowledge of people of all different races and ethnicities and things. And that's not the main part of the story, but that's his goal in mind, is to capture that same adventure story without the stereotypical kind of racism or things that would be depicted in there. So that's exactly what this is, though. This story is a blast. It's a fun adventure story, kind of reminiscent of like a Wizard of Oz or an Alice in Wonderland. Ezra Clayton Daniels compared it to Winsor McCay. I see that in here as well. And Frank Herbert. But once they get going on this adventure, which is, it's broken into chapters too, but they just encounter all these wild characters. And it seems like the characters that they encounter get wilder as the story goes on and progresses. But it's got so many elements in here of like science fiction, adventure, like historical fiction, and robots, aliens, flying bats, a group of like apes in here as well. Like so many just like wild things are happening throughout the story as they encounter this wild adventure. These giant alien crab-like things, and all this like all the character designs too are just so incredible and distinct. It's like every time you flip a page, you feel like you're going to encounter some other wild type character, creature, or something, and it just keeps you like flipping the pages. You can't stop reading this. I was definitely reading this. I read it in a couple sittings because I had to go somewhere eventually, but I wanted to keep reading. I couldn't put it down, and it's just so much fun. It's just a blast. And Kevin was working on this over, I can't like, because Rough Pearl came out a couple years ago. I don't know the publishing chronology as far as like if he was working on this Rough Pearl at the same time or if Rough Pearl was a reprint of something earlier. But he was working on this for like 10 plus years, I believe. Because he said his kids that he referenced on the cover photo are now grown up and much older than they were in that photo. But an absolute blast. I can't recommend this enough. The Moon Prince. Now I'm going to show off Buff Soul by Moa Romanova. And this is my first time reading a comic by Moa Romanova. I've been wanting to read Goblin Girl. That was another output that Moa did that Fantagraphics published. I just haven't got around to it. And now, again, just like with Moon Prince, after reading this, I want to read Goblin Girl. But this is Buff Soul. And the design on this, which I think was done by Kayla E. It was designed by Kayla E., who did Precious Rubbish. She's also one of my favorite book designers, too. But it's got this glittery, like, there's no texture to the glitter itself, but it's got this glittery finish on the cover. And even Buff Soul's got a glitter finish to it. There's your two main characters in the portrait. In the Moa's name right here is Debossed as well, and so is the frame around that picture. And on here, the text is Debossed as well. You got the Fantagraphics logo and glitter. And then here's the back cover with just a great cityscape done by Moa Romanova with some more glitter and some of the blurbs and whatnot. And then the end papers on the inside. Here, I think, yeah, they're different. Here's the front end papers, and here's the back end papers. I always love when they do something different on both front and back. And then Buff Soul. Here's the title page. So this is a autobiographical story about Moa when she went traveling with a band and all the adventures and hijinks that happened with that. So you see Moa has a very distinct style. Whenever you see a Moa Romanova strip or art, you can definitely pick it out of a lineup, which I love. I love when a cartoonist has a style unto their own. But so all the character designs are of the same features and whatnot. But she goes on this tour with this band, and through that, all the partying and the hijinks you can imagine with music or bands or rock stars and things can turn wild. I love all these references to like Nirvana and Kurt Cobain and how popular it was at the time to capture it in a time and moment. But you also have an Avril Lavigne t-shirt, so you know that it's long past Kurt Cobain. But anyways, but it also then through all these hijinks and this all of the partying and the alcohol intake and everything like this, she starts to have reflections on her own past trauma, and that's where the story really has a lot of heart to it. So Moa throughout here is having all these reflections back onto her childhood trauma or early trauma, and that's what is conflicting her with the current situation that she's in. Here she's wearing a Good Charlotte t-shirt. So it's just a really, really deep story about friendship, about trauma, about mental health, and about self-destruction. And it's really, really great. I can't recommend this enough, but I don't want to spoil too much for you because then, you should read it on your own and find out all the details on your own. But Moa was a Eisner Award winner with Goblin Girl, so everyone should check this out because this might be up for an Eisner next year. Now, this third one is going to be a little different because it's not a comic book at all. So it's a little bit different of a release, and it's a bigger book. This is the Evergreen Review, Dispatches from the Literary Underground. So the Evergreen Review was this magazine that came out and was published throughout the years of 1957 through 1973. And when I saw this was coming out from Fantagraphics, full disclosure, I had never heard of the Evergreen Review. I never read it. I wasn't born until after it was being published. But when I saw this come up with their catalog, I knew I had to have this book, because this takes place during the time period that I am obsessed with as far as like history goes. So it does have a dust jacket. I can show you that off with an Allen Ginsberg cover there. I think it's a cover to issue number 42. And then here's the front back flaps of the dust jacket. And here's the hardcover itself. It's got this giant red design to it. And then the in papers are the same on the front and back. So yeah, this takes place, or doesn't take place, sorry. It's collecting magazine that was published from 57 to 73. That is the time period of pretty much the 60s, right? That's over 16 years. 10 of them were in the 60s. So you get the last bits of the 50s into the 60s, and then starting the 70s. Like those time period is what I'm obsessed with, because that's when you have like the Vietnam War, you have the first inklings of counterculture. You have with even like the underground comics scene was starting during that time. Counterculture, counter thinking from Americans starting to stand up against like the Vietnam War, which was obviously a huge thing in the 60s. So after the World War I and World War II, those were very go America, patriotic kind of things. But then once Vietnam War happened, a lot of Americans, and especially younger Americans, were standing up against it, saying like, why are we even in this war? Like, this doesn't need to happen. We don't need to be in this. And then just like ideas were just exploding. It seemed like artists and writers and even like filmmakers and comic book writers and things, everything was exploding in the 60s as far as like this fresh new like age of culture. And that's what this captures. So this has every cover from the Evergreen Review is in here. I think it's like 100 or so covers, plus a lot of other ephemera. And I do love how it's the treatment here, as far as it's photographs of the pages that they're capturing in here. So these are all photographs on this very stark white glossy paper, which gives it a very good reading experience, because you can see like the yellowed paper on the magazine. It very like draws you into the picture they're actually trying to show you, which makes for a good reading experience. So you get a lot of writing in here by Allen Ginsberg. So you get a lot of writing in here by like Allen Ginsberg, Tim Leary, Dennis Hopper, Jerry Rubin, Bernadette Devlin, Germaine Greer. And I just love like Barbarella, like this showing you, capturing what was going on in the culture, avant-garde to counterculture. So this is an amazing like coffee table book to me. Like this is a book that I'm going to have on my coffee table and just pick up and flip through and read an article here or there to just soak in that time period that I love so much. Here's the cover of the dust jacket that was used. It's the Allen Ginsberg cover, which they have an ad in here, which I don't know if it's coming up here shortly. Oh yeah, here it is. Where they did a poster of it. And because this poster, they kept having this poster in subways and things, but people were writing in saying like, I want that poster, but I don't really want to steal it off the wall. So they actually printed some of these posters for it. It's Join the Underground Generation. And just like every cover too is very distinct. Like this is such an amazing read. I've not read through the whole thing yet. I just was kind of picking out different articles that I wanted to read, because I think that's the best way to read a book like this, is to have it on your coffee table and just pick it up and be like, what do I want to read about today? Oh, the CIA. All right, let's read this article. So it by no means does it have every single article, because that'd be insane. It's kind of like a greatest hits type deal, but it does contain every single cover and all the big articles that were published. And then also it has kind of an oral history where the writer of this book, compiled by Pat Thomas went back and interviewed a lot of the staffers from the Underground Review from back in the day to keep kind of capture a present day reflection on what the Evergreen Review meant. And that's one thing I like about this, is that this captures a very specific time period and preserves it in history, and I talk about that a lot with comic book history, like to keep things in print is to preserve that history so that future generations can read it. Because had this book not been made, like I said, I never heard of the Evergreen Review, and every future generation probably wouldn't either. So the fact that this book's now going to be in print, future generations might come across it and be able to read this. And it captures that time period perfectly, because you get to read what people were saying at that time, not just what historians were saying today about that time. And then also, like I said, in addition to that, you get the reflection from the staffers. So it's the best of both worlds here. But just a really, really fascinating book. I love all the old ads in here too. Just such an amazing testament of that time period. So that's the Evergreen review. With Evergreen review, covers and essays from 1957 to 1973. Can't recommend it enough. It's not, like I said, it's not comics, but it is published by Fantagraphics. Pat Thomas, he does say in the introduction he was looking for a publisher for this type of book, and Gary Groth is like, let's do it. So can't recommend that book enough. Or Buff Soul or Moonprints. They're all great reads from Fantagraphics. Thank you so much to Tucker Stone for sending me out these review copies, and to Fantagraphics. Please give the video a thumbs up. Comment down below with your thoughts on any of these books, or if you want more information on them, or if you want me to do a deeper dive video on any of the 3 books, I can do that as well. And you can follow me on TikTok, Instagram, all that information is down below as well. And everyone, keep talking comics.